This tragic story coming out of New York, we've heard more about the situation with Freddie Gray than we have about this particular officer, decorated officer Brian Moore. And of course, looking at the latest statistics, which we were discussing on this program last week, there are by large far more officers shot in America annually than there are Black individuals who are shot. But yet this sort of headline, it doesn't make the news. There are also more white assailants who are shot more than Black assailants. But for whatever reason, Bernard, I don't understand why it's not presented in proper factual context. What's the motive for this?
Oh, look, everybody has their own motives. Everybody has their own opinions. What's bothering me on a day like this, this wasn't a drug dealer. This wasn't somebody with a rap sheet. This wasn't somebody that, went out there and, created havoc on a community. This was a person that stood between good and evil, put their life on the line for the citizens of New York and this country, came from a family of police officers, his father, his uncle, his cousin, and died doing a job protecting his community. There's no outrage. I don't see any civil rights leaders out there yelling and screaming. I don't see any protests. And it boggles the mind to, trying to figure out what people in this country, where they come from when they're out there protesting certain things and things like this. Like you just said, it's almost back page media. I don't get it.
And whenever, like in the situation with Ferguson, my hometown, St. Louis, and whenever whenever a situation like this happens, you always hear, well, there need to be more Black police officers. Well, in Baltimore, half of the force is Black. They have a Black police captain, Black police chief. And who really would, Bernard, who would want to become a police officer when you are subjected day in and day out to the level of ridiculous criticism, even the good guy? I mean, when clearly they are acting within their rights and they're stopping a bad guy who could go and hurt someone. That doesn't help more Black men and women from the community want to join.
Well, it's not only that they're being criticized and ridiculed and scrutinized and all that stuff. The fact of the matter is they're going to work in a community that is ravaged with drugs, guns. Look at the homicide rate in Baltimore. If we had the homicide rate in New York City that Baltimore does per capita, we'd probably be up around 3,000 homicides a year.
Wow.
Versus 400. The bottom line is, especially in New York City, if you look since 1994, the biggest benefactors of the crime reduction, in 85% crime reduction, violent crime reduction, is in the minority communities. At 85 to 90% homicide reduction is in the minority communities. They were the benefactors of a lot of the programs that people today want to get rid of, that people today want to criticize. And I think we lose sight of the work, the really dedicated and hard work that men and women in law enforcement do in this country.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, you have people like Al Sharpton, and not just him. But a number of folks like Al Sharpton who are saying, well, you know what this means after the situation of Baltimore, after what happened in Ferguson, after South Carolina. Of course, these make the news because they're rare and they're exceptions. Nobody talks about the cop that does his job well. Nobody talks about the cop that, saves a family. No one's talking about the cops here in Garland, Texas that stopped the terror attack and a building of 300 some odd people from being massacred. But they say, well, we need to give control of the law enforcement over to the Department of Justice because that's the only way that this is going to work. What do you think of when you hear that stuff?
Well, you know what? It's annoying. I mean, I've been dealing with it for 30 years, and things like this happen. I think we just have to make sure that the American public realizes and understands you've got to take every one of these incidents, keep them in context, keep them in perspective with regard to real numbers.